Welcome to the Intifada Globalists, a podcast against international Zionism. I'm Anonsus.
And I'm Doug.
All right. Welcome to a new episode of the Intifada Globalists / Eviction Notice terrible hybrid. Let's go.
I am Lewis. It is March the 31st, and we are broadcasting live from the smoldering ruins of Prince Sultan Air Base.
Yep, day 22 of the special military operation.
Yes. Prince Sultan Air Base is a really stupid name for an air base, by the way. Can we point that out before, as we celebrate the downfall of this fucking place?
Duke
it doesn't make
Prince
any sense.
Air Base.
It's like calling it Prince King Air Base. Like, definitionally, the prince cannot be the king. Like, it's a contradiction in terms, and I think the Iranian passion for grammar and academic, consistency is why they fucking smashed this base.
Yeah, all of these Francophile literature enjoyers, Pride and Prejudice, why did I call it Pride and Prejudice? I'm going to edit that out.
No, no, it's true. So while the Iranians are Francophilic, the Ayatollah himself was a Pride and Prejudice enjoyer. He preferred some French literature, but he did read Pride and Prejudice and liked it, so that is true. He probably read it in the original English, too. He's a very intelligent guy. Yeah. But yes, they...
Alexis de Tocqueville, who I assume most Americans have read.
Yes. What's funny is there's not... as much as like a whatever Iranabu we all kind of have become or were prior to this conflict, it is annoyingly hard to find a piece of Iranian literature or that is like a good encapsulation of the state. And I didn't talk to everyone about this, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't know. You read like this book about and it's not that it's bad, but here's like this is a collection of hadiths about Ali. It's like it is a somewhat inscrutable culture. I do wonder if the reason there are Anglophiles and Francophiles and Americophiles and Russophiles is that the culture did produce so much. You're used to at least produce so much nation-defining literature. And I can tell you what books to read in America if you want to do that. And there's books about Britain you can read, and there's plenty of books about Russia you can read. But it does seem like these cultures, the books are either so old. If a Chinese person says you should read what is it? Because I tried to read the Monkey King. It's ancient, first of all, and it's basically it's not inscrutable, but it's just it's very old. Or Journey to the West is a little more readable, but it is an advantage we have culturally that our books about us and on us are written within the last 200 years and are readable. So wow, that was a tangent I did not expect to go on. Oh my goodness. But
no, progress of the war. We've got the move from the former Prince Sultan Air Base to now Prince Fahd, or is it King Fahd?
Who knows? I
think
Fahd
Air Base.
King Fahd, yeah. Yes, Fahd Air Base. And the reason for this is that the drone, I believe they're trying, so it does seem to be that the Americans have just accepted that any base or anything within 2,000 kilometers of Iran is just you're going to eat missiles all day. That's just part of the game. And that's kind of actually the reason is the carriers are not the carriers are not huge game changers. They're not proving their worth. But they are definitely mobile, they're moving. So they're just airfields that can kind of wiggle. And the airfields that can kind of wiggle are probably out from 800 to 1,000 kilometers within Iran. They can kind of just be safe from attacks because of these rockets are point to point, so they're hitting a known GPS point. They're not tracking the ships generally, so you can kind of just, by the nature of the ocean and being mobile, get out the way. Whereas airfields, of course, are famously immobile and are just getting plastered. But Prince Sultan was unique in that it was key to the efforts to bomb Iran, and it was still very much, and also to run refuelers out of. And they got to the point where they stopped running fighters out of it. They were just running refuelers, but they they were just getting. They were also in range of Shahed drones, and I guess everywhere is in range of Shahed drones, but the drones could fly low and slow, or low and fast, or they were close enough that they just couldn't intercept a meaningful rate of them. And they were claiming, I mean, they were claiming 94% shoot down rates. I think clearly that's retarded. Like, no one believes this.
Well,
but
yeah, but like there's a reason to do that. You want to like you're trying to make the enemy think that whatever strikes they're doing are ineffective, and that
yes,
your air defense is number one.
yes, which is also that's part of American air defense doctrine, and air defense doctrine generally is you do kind of hide your losses and make them reconsider, but it doesn't really fly. Pardon the pun. When the Chinese are just like showing you a picture of what you hit, so like or the enemy having satellite imagery is going to kind of fuck up that whole thing. But yeah, so they're pushing west. I know that there's a lot of American forces in Jordan, which is pretty far west, and even Israel. It does seem like they're trying to find a point where it's far enough from drones, because drones are slow. You can pick them off with fighter aircraft. You can pick them off with choppers. You can kind of do stuff,
Or with drones now in Ukraine.
Yeah, or other drones. And man, there's a million things you can do, and it gets easier with more time for sure. Like it is difficult to hit Israel like proper with drones because of all this. But if we're so the interesting point is that we're just gonna. So obviously there's like rockets and people can strike back at Iran, but if there's like you're inside like call it like effective Shahed range, you're kind of just fucked. Like you just gotta eat it. Like there's actually not a solution for this. And the Gulf states are like so profoundly in Shahed range that they're just like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing now. We're just eating these drones until like Kuwait. I mean, the Kuwaiti Air Force lost 3. Now, people will say it's the Kuwaiti Air Force. Maybe these weren't even like operable, But on the ground, 3 Eurofighter Typhoons were blown up, which is a modern aircraft that was presumably in inventory, right? The Italian Air Force in the same base also had 2 of its Eurofighter Typhoons wounded. We don't know. They said they're going to be repaired, but
although in Kuwait's case, they still do have a favorable KD ratio when it comes to aircraft against the U.S.
Oh, it's true. It's true. Yes, it's still like 4. It's 4-3 right now. Yeah. Fair enough. One of the problems with this is that yes, I can see how you could maintain an air campaign from further and further away because of just how aircraft are long range, missiles are long range. They'll slowly run out of stuff, but if there's going to be just like this zone of control of like Shahed range, which is not like it's not like 1,000 kilometers. It's definitely less. It's maybe I don't know, 200 kilometers or call it like it's in Prince Sultan range, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do a ground invasion under the conditions, right? You can't do a ground like
yeah.
Having an air base is one thing getting picked off, but having like a assembly area for a land invasion is impossible under these conditions, right? Like so I have a friend of a friend, who's not like one of our guys, just a friend of a friend. He was on, so he is not a pogue. He is not a filthy, disgusting pogue. He was a infantryman. And he had reason to be on or around Prince Sultan Air Base during the last days of it. And he said he saw, first of all, 2 things. Like, drones constantly. And not just constant, but also, like, they had machine gun, like, there's, like, towers on bases in the Middle East, like, that kind of have, like, machine guns on them. And like trucks, obviously, that have machine guns on them. But traditionally, you aren't like, ask me how I know. When you're getting the Shahed drones, as I've been hitting Shahed drones, you're not. There's a lot of bullshit
Shahed
rules.
Drone beta tester.
Yes, there's a lot of bullshit rules about who can shoot in the air, in the U.S. military, and a lot of those rules were lifted. Like oh nope, you just gotta like nope, you all can shoot your machine guns at these drones because like we're just getting fucked up here. So that was interesting. He also said that a lot of the pogues were just. I asked him like, hey, like, how does like people who are Air Force pukes and Army guys who are just like way behind the line in Prince Sultan Air Base who never expected anything like to happen like this, how are they dealing with it? He said there was a lot of crying, like a lot of crying, and keep in mind this guy. I tweeted him earlier. He was wounded at Prince Sultan. Like, I can't not seriously, but he was like he sustained call it a Purple Heart level wound. You know, you know, he'll be fine, but I don't think you can run this I don't think you could do a ground. I have to believe that all the rumblings of a ground campaign or even an island campaign is that they are seeking to run this air campaign and like somehow degrade the Shaheed storage or stockpiles or figure something out like they're going to figure out something, whether it's they figure out the jamming, they bomb the factories, they shoot all of the people who are launching them, which is also impossible. Like, it's impossible because it's like so it's super easy and you can be gone. Like you can set it on a timer. Like Shaheeds are not being launched by guys like they don't have pilots. Shaheeds are not piloted. They are effectively just missiles, right? They are GPS or GNSS or Baidu or GLaSSNOS, whatever. Pick your satellite style, and they are just they shoot off and they're just a rocket basically, just slow. And that just seems to be that. Like I don't think you can. I don't think unless I know they have a stockpile.
Just waiting for the laser tech to become operational or something.
I think they are waiting for. I truly think that they have the impression they can bomb all of the factories. The problem is there's not
That's been attempted.
They've been doing that for one, and also there's like the grand drone factory somewhere. Like it's presumably underground or distributed or small and like obviously it's clearly like a state secret and like they knew this. Also, I have the take that there's probably like something like 80,000 of these in stockpiles, and how do you say this? They've used about 1,000 in this first conflict. That was way too much for us to handle, like to the point of abandoning air bases and such. So I just don't see I don't see a solution where like so a lot of people are like, oh, they're firing. There was a cope for a while that, oh, like the missile rate is declining, and if I extrapolate this to zero, like we win the war soon, right? Because soon they'll be firing zero missiles. I think that was that's like totally the wrong way to look at this conflict. The missile rate, they could have zero missiles, and they wouldn't be striking Israel proper, but that is mostly symbolic, but like blowing up Israel, like parts of Israel. Sure, it was useful.
And there's another group of missile launchers against Israel up in the north.
Yes, like absolutely, it's good that they're doing that. Believe me, but in terms of the conflict, like the who's going to win this war, it's the drone, it's not the missiles, frankly. And I think that's going to become increasingly important, and that's also going to affect what I think though. This is actually something I want to bring up. It's very important. I think the knowledge of this is really informing Israeli and Jewish strategy with Hezbollah, which is why they're going so hard. Like Hezbollah didn't. Now they're shooting in the north, obviously, right? But it was. It was a little above skirmish level. But the Jews have gone to a general mobilization, like they've gone to general mode. Like they've activated pretty much everybody. And I think their fear is if they don't take out Hezbollah now and like do a true blue invasion of the south, at the very least the south, and crazy thing is if they get the south, it might not even be enough because of the Bekaa Valley in the north. But
yeah, if
they destroy Hezbollah, right, they won't have to deal with Hezbollah in 5 years, which will have
Shahed heavy Hezbollah.
Yes, like the theoretical Shahed Hezbollah is the scariest thing in the world because Hezbollah's resource constraints are like manpower and money, and the Shahed is like cures both those things, right? Like, they need to Hezbollah need to maintain a basic force that is enough to credibly like push back or delay while the rockets go. And what delays the rockets is like money, and they got some rockets in the fall of the Assad regime. It seems because they've had to, like they pulled some heavier things out, like that. Like how the fuck did you get? Oh, it was the Syrian army. When they fell apart, you stole that, or some corrupt officer sold it to you because he didn't like Jelani. That makes sense. Um, but the way it's a Shahed thing, also what make every like the Shahed's force multiplier is short rangedness.
Hmm.
Every like not only is like it's not like the north is in range or Tel Aviv's in range. Like the south of Israel is in range. Like the south of Israel is closer to north to South Lebanon than Prince Sultan is to fucking Iran. Like
Yeah.
they could make this unlivable. They could make and also you could also have domestic Hezbollah production of these. They're very simple. Like
Yeah.
and there's even rumblings. Hezbollah is getting a little bit cocky, because they were kind of playing possum to some degree, and like I have seen. I mean, maybe they're feeling their nuts a little bit, but Hezbollah aligned commentators being like, the state of affairs with the Lebanese government is not acceptable. It's like before this war started, there was the Lebanese government saying, "Oh, we're going to disarm Hezbollah. We're going to destroy Hezbollah."
Yeah.
Now the war has started, and Hezbollah's revealed their hand as to how powerful they are in how much like they still have, and that they're once again fighting is to stand still on the ground, and also blowing up the north. It is very possible that I've seen Hezbollah commentators or Hezbollah aligned saying there is an increasingly strong case for Hezbollah to just simply take over the state, if not de jure, leave the mechanisms in place of pluralistic democracy, because once again it's not a Shia country, it's a multi-ethnic country, but effectively start thumbing the scale in a way that
I mean, in the 2006 through let's say 2024 era, I mean, Hezbollah was it almost always had at least roughly friendly figures within Lebanese government. This strongly anti-Hezbollah Lebanese government is somewhat of a novelty in my lifetime.
Yes, but it also just like and it's all the thing is it's clearly kind of put in place by the Americans, frankly, and some and the thing is, and it's also some Lebanese oligarchs who are pro-Israeli. It's not. It should be like it doesn't reflect the feelings on the ground of people in Lebanon, I don't think, and it really relies on, frankly, American support. And American support has been increasingly discredited, like to the point of I don't think anybody would even really care that much if Hezbollah just became like the de facto military, or Now the thing is that Hezbollah does not want to be Hezbollah wants to be a political party for the liberation of Palestine and the freedom of the Lebanese people, but it's like sometimes you got to take over the state, or de facto, and I think part of that will be just military cuts, just slowly just breaking the power of Lebanese military to where it's just like a support brigade for Hezbollah, because they're not doing anything meaningful ever. They've never done anything meaningful except for fuck with Hezbollah. So, So but the thing is, if there is if I can create a nightmare scenario for Israel, it is they win this ground war. They call up all their everything. They push Hezbollah and the Lebanese people, and they ethnically cleanse all the way up to the Litani River. But then that becomes their new border and their new buffer zone, and that's great. And they're really proud, and they start moving in settlers and stuff. But that causes Hezbollah to actually take over the state from their headquarters, because they have also northern headquarters. That's actually they're bigger in the Bekaa Valley in the north.
Yeah.
And that just becomes a Hezbollah, because of the people from the south moving there effectively, and also into Beirut. Electorally, it becomes and what the Jews have done to them. It becomes Hezbollah country and also is like Jihad country in 5 years, and they just can't like deal with it. It's very
Yeah, I
long.
mean, with a country with a direct U.S. presence and one where the U.S. presence is based on fighting against Axis of Resistance forces, which are par- partially part of a state, yet those resistance forces still maintain their existence and functionality. We have another example of this in Iraq. Uh, the situation of the PMF is made much more difficult in Iraq by the U.S., I'd say, than like the U.S. could realistically do in Lebanon in the near future.
I do think that I had this idea. I was thinking of possible peace agreements would be like if the because America because the Israelis don't want to have peace. They want to like Israel Hezbollah. That's their goal, I think, for this war at this point.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not. It's no longer about Iran really, for them. And there's a thing of like, okay, well, we need to have America wants a peace with Iran. Israel doesn't really care much. They kind of always see this as at war with Iran anyway, and then the conflict for them is a distance conflict, and they have to deal with Hezbollah anyway. So like, even if they, not that I'm not saying Iran would negotiate a separate peace and let Hezbollah just hang, but if they were negotiating a peace, I think the Israelis would not accept anything short of unless Hezbollah is totally destroyed, like American boots in Israel, or sorry, in Lebanon, like American peacekeepers go to secure some kind of ceasefire because they got kind of cucked by the last ceasefire. Like they had a ceasefire where they had like Lebanese army and UN forces like destroying Hezbollah depots and fortifications and all kind of stuff in the south, and they could also bomb wherever they wanted in Lebanon effectively, even though they weren't allowed to. They were just
Mhm.
doing airstrikes, and that just wasn't enough. Like it's clearly this organization is stronger than these people realize. And I think now they know that and they have to reassess their assessments because a lot of the thing was how deeply and profoundly the Israelis bought their own propaganda. As a Hezbollah truther, we're recording this, and my on audio, my profile picture is still Hezbollah Squidward after all this time. Um, and it's important to remember in the first conflict in 2024, Hezbollah fought Israel to a standstill on the ground in a conventional sense, not in a guerrilla sense. Like there were lines
Yeah.
on the map that Hezbollah was holding. Then there was the peace deal, and what the peace deal didn't come around because of the pager attack or some kind of like battle. It was they were bombing massive apartment complex high rises in Shia neighborhoods in Beirut and in Tyre. Sorry, I'm a bad crusader. I don't remember the exact pronunciation of that city. And they were terror bombing civilian like they were killing a lot of people, I'm sure, but also just like making a lot of people homeless. Like they were doing, they were not militarily in conflict. They were introducing like political problems, and Hezbollah agreed to let the Lebanese government negotiate ceasefire, which also didn't stop bombing for one, but also like it did. And then the Israelis also after the ceasefire they did advance further, despite because once again the Americans who were guaranteeing the ceasefire just let them and were like to do all kind of things in violation of it. But because Hezbollah dealt with those things and didn't like reach out to war, I think there was a perception that they had lost. But like the ground forces, so Israel between the ceasefire and this conflict, they did keep bombing Hezbollah. Estimates are that they
Mhm.
killed 450 Hezbollah fighters. Maybe it's probably half that as civilians. You can usually, but just given their estimate, they the army that stopped Israel is still intact. And also, you got to remember when they're bombing people, a lot of people they bomb are like public figures and politicians and like political affiliates, like people who are above ground. They're not getting like you know militia fighters. And also, what Hezbollah is not like they're like a lot of the Hezbollah fighters are just young men who are healthy who live south of the Litani River. Like frankly, if you're a man and you live south of the Litani River and you're a Shia, which a lot of them are, you're just going to fight. You know,
Yeah. And
and
for
then like
non-Shias, there's like national resistance brigades type
yes,
things, other armed parties.
yes, and then yeah, you can join Amal party who occasionally fight, and yeah, there's all kind of stuff you can do. They can't beat them on the ground, with at least don't let that commit. Maybe they can if they just if they commit a ton of forces, they have a ton of losses. But with what they're currently doing, they're not going to win. They seem to be tooling up for a big invasion, which they plan to win. But even if they do, it doesn't solve the problem. At best, they can do an ethnic cleansing and move the problem north. Um, but like that's the problem with like what's it called? Like, it's like the inverse of strategic depth is that Israel and Lebanon are both tiny countries. So like if one pushes the other back, like the other doesn't really like they don't rely on like ground, they rely on like people. And if you just concentrate those people into a slightly smaller area, you actually haven't like disrupted their capabilities that much. You know, like okay, like Lebanon has Lebanon. If you ethnically cleanse everyone north of the Litani River, the population of Lebanon is still the same. Like it is, you know. So and then like Israel's territory is not meaningfully like they can't trade land for time anyway. That's not that much land, you know. If they were to have to defend, so you know, like it's very difficult for Israel to change facts on the ground. They've gotten to the extent of facts on the ground that they can change in many ways. I don't see anything more on Lebanon.
Diego Garcia issue.
Yeah, well, Diego Garcia is we got it's like what is it, 3,800 kilometers from Iran. That is a long, long way away. I was I was wondering what so Diego Garcia was used as a red herring during the Midnight Hammer stuff that it was actually a strike that just came from like Kansas, like the middle of the U.S. And there was they'll come from Fordo, you know that was a pretty good misdirection. How much benefit you actually get from Diego Garcia in this war is kind of questionable because it seems like it's kind of almost too far away. Air bases that are more than 2,000 kilometers out are kind of what they're using when they want to be safe. Places like Cyprus, um, they're kind of I guess they're just proving they can or saying they can do something where maybe the Brits are being pressured to you know I don't know what the like what you get from Diego Garcia unless you're I mean I guess you can put refuelers there but you can put refuelers in Cyprus right like it's closer to the route because the current bombing route is it's Sheffield to south to the Straits of Gibraltar and then through the Met and then through Israel, Syria, and not always Iraq actually, sometimes through Saudi to Kuwait. Like it's a really circuitous route. Or they go through Syria, depending. And maybe Turkey, you know, who knows. But it's a very long flight, and maybe Diego Garcia could be an alternative to that. But there's also like not much refueler. Like I guess you have to have a lot of refueling assets there for that because it's a very long flight, and also you got to remember like these aircraft are very heavy with bombs when they take off, presumably, or so it's possible they're trying to cut that route down, but it seems like they're okay with that route, and also there have been confirmed at least B-1 attacks from like America proper, because frankly, like I think Sheffield Air Force Base and like you know any East Coast American base is like not that meaningful for a super duper sonic bomber, you know, like the B-1 Lancer is. So it seems that they seem very content with it. I don't know. And as for Diego Garcia getting hit with where or not hit or targeted with 2 missiles, yeah, that's interesting. But it probably just was a flex, you know, to say, hey, let you know we can hit this thing. But you know, I don't know how much payload those things had, or if they were just. Some people saying they were like Fatah missiles with like a tenth of the payload to extend the range, or maybe they were. I've heard some people speculate they were old, like they were things the Russians had given them for the like they were either prototypes, or if not like reverse engineering prototypes, where the Russians had long ago, like forever ago, given them some prototype like Cold War era, you know, long range ICBMs to like base off their missile program, obviously without the nuclear tip, right? And maybe they weren't
Right.
launching those old ones or prototypes of those because people were saying, "Oh, the missile was slow or and predictable. It wasn't doing the hypersonic wiggle thing." But how the fuck can you tell? Because that shit was over the ocean. I don't know where people. I don't know where people were getting that source. So we do know one was shot down and one like allegedly in the air, had some kind of error and exploded or something happened, which happens with missiles a good bit. Um, Especially actually one of the things with hypersonics that people do not realize is that it's not the speed of the missile is like kind of overly fixated on. It is almost so fast. It is that it's like the kind of bouncing around and wiggling that makes the trajectory non predictable and hard to intercept.
Yeah, high tech
But
version of the wobbly scud.
yes, but how it achieves that wobble is like kind of the inherent like bouncing around in like different in like the air in the atmosphere, if you will. Like it's kind of like kind of in the same way like kind of skip rocks over water. It's
Yeah.
kind of using like inducing wiggle through atmosphere. But sometimes if things don't line up right, the like instead of bouncing off the atmosphere, you just it explodes into a trillion, a million trillion pieces. So that could have happened too. I do think the Soviet explanation is a little bit too cute. They were probably just FATAs with lower payloads or prototypes of longer range missiles that have been used for whatever they want to be used for. Um, and they've got all the research value and production value was gone, so why not send that bitch at Diego Garcia? Um, I
But
don't
no,
think Diego Garcia becomes a big base in this way. Also because it's also like it is very small, and there's nowhere to hide on it. And you can do things Diego Garcia that you can't do to other bases because it's so small and you can kind of assume where everybody is. Like the Iranians were talking about they called it a stealth drone, but it was just like a very long range, slow drone that could just it's going at 100 meters over the ocean for like a day or two, and then it can hit Diego Garcia. That could be a problem. Because Diego Garcia is so small, there's not really a place to hide.
yeah, but
Um,
I was also seeing a commentary about the strike. Um, People of the neoconservative bent. I'm not sure what you call them. The post neocon. Not from the neocon region of Brooklyn, but the sparkling Jewish interventionists. Uh, Saying that the fact that Diego Garcia was targeted by two Iranian missile strikes is an example of the imminent threat which Iran was posing to the U.S.
yeah, I mean that's this whole war is that weird proxy of like we're going to strike you from this base, or we are striking this base. Like, how can you hit this base? Or like condemning Iranian aggression against America in like even like Japan was doing this shit, and it is a bizarre inversion of international norms where everyone has to pretend that Iran is the aggressor here, that like they reject diplomacy, and that like there's no state of war between America. It's like they're just being attacked for for no reason.
Yeah, the
And
existence of the U.S. military is an imminent threat to the USSR because if the USSR did attack the U.S. from Cuba, then the U.S. would be capable of striking back against Soviet forces in Cuba.
unironically, one of these like retarded like America empire imperialists was like I was trying to explain like the American empire and how it's been fucking up, like how in the 90s Russia and China wanted to just join the American empire and buy treasury bonds and like join NATO and something and this person was saying, "You're a fucking idiot, like Russia had missiles pointed at America the entire time." And I was like, "Nigga, missiles are have a range. It's a circle. Like like everything is pointed at like every missile at any point is pointed at anyone in range. If you want to like what do you mean pointed at? Like what the fuck? The fuck are you fucking point? Like but it was like no. Russia in the 90s couldn't have been an American ally, which they objectively were. These people are kind of like I like when they'll put up pretensions of like, oh, I'm a Napoleon or I'm an imperialist, but like they're kind of just rubes. Like and they're just like Sean Hannity watching rubes of a new generation of like, oh, we got the CPC and the or CCP and the Russians like they're just like you know, but like they just don't want to understand. They don't have a desire to understand. They just you know they they don't the idea that the existence of a military is somehow underhanded was a bizarre like relatively new American invention of like Marco Rubio saying, well, they were building a missile program, which they have every right to build, as a shield for their nuclear program. So like they're going to build up their missile program, their military, their army, and this will create a situation where they can defend themselves when we attack them for building a nuke. So before they start building a nuke, we're going to attack them to reduce their ability to defend themselves. That is crazy, but it points to a kind of broader thing of all of these international norms and treaties and what have yous. The Pete Hegseth government and the Trump government and like the fucking American right wing political worldview in general is retarded. And they will say things like, "Oh, isn't it so? Aren't we so smart? We've admitted that we're an empire now. Like, we're actually an empire, and that makes me a genius for admitting this. And we can do imperial things, but they don't. Even from that perspective, they're dumb because how they operate is international norms and diplomatic norms are designed to benefit empires. They are not designed to benefit regional powers, right? Regional powers actually operate really well in a world of no norms because in their region they can quickly marshal power. So if there's a norm of before you have a war, you're required to kind of negotiate for a while, send things back and forth, send a declaration of war to their embassy, and you're like that. All that stuff is what benefits an empire. Empires like that stuff because empires are inherently all over the world. They can't focus on any one thing really. It takes them a while to kind of like get everything in line. But if there's these diplomatic processes and these treaties in place and these norms around declaring war and mobilizing your forces and and all these things, that's good for the empire because the empire is spread thinly all over the world and they can concentrate where they're needed. Whereas a regional power is inherently concentrated in its region, and they get stuff out of launching surprise attacks.
Yeah, so I am not going to fall for the soy blue pill cuck idea that forces ought not operate out of uniform. They ought to be clearly distinguished from the civilian population. Who am I? Oh, I'm the guy with the big uniformed military fighting against guerrillas.
Yeah, no, it's fun when Israel's kind of hubris. Like, oh, like for instance, a great example of this, I think, is there's the terrorism thing is actually kind of big. Or like, well, the terrorism thing is to do with like allowing countries to like when you say that, oh, we have this policy of countries are allowed to run their own internal affairs. That is a good policy for an empire because they can just deal with all these countries. They don't have to be like dealing with the internal affairs of all these countries.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a pain in the ass for countries to follow all of the like internal politics of each other, and it's very annoying. And you have to like have vast institutional like networks of like CIA guys to do that. But like, oh, now we want to do terrorism. So terrorism means that we should ban. Terrorism laws are effectively banning political parties that we don't like in other countries. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's not a meaningful thing, but having this as a thing means like, oh, now we have to be all over these places, doing all these things. We have to, if someone wants to trade with Iran or Hezbollah or bank with it, like they are cutting themselves off from us. But like, what makes us powerful is that they are in our banking system. So if a bank in Lebanon starts dealing with Hezbollah or Hezbollah-aligned people and businesses, because they're a local bank, they'll be cut off of certain American financial services and international financial, sure. But the reason that once you do that to that bank just becomes the Hezbollah bank, right? You want to have these institutions as part of your thing. Like it's more beneficial for the American empire that like they're the bank of Hezbollah be part of the American empire, right? You can actually do things to them then, right? You can't if you just cut them off. You're I think there's I believe I forget the name of it. It's a Chinese bank in China, obviously. China is a large country full of many Chinese banks, and one of them is just the bank that deals with Iran. That's all they do. Like, listen, their business is Iran focused. They do Iran investment. Like if you want to invest in Iran and China, you don't want to get sanctioned. You kind of just run it through this bank. They buy the oil. They do the moving of the money, and that's just how they like you can because we've created these norms that are like cut off our influence, and it's very silly. It's like we're running the empire poorly. There's a million examples of that. You could just go on for days and days. Oh, the Maduro kidnapping or assassinating leaders, killing leaders is a reason. Is not a thing that strong countries do. That's a weak country. That's a weak country thing to do. Effectively saying, actually, it's totally cool for you to kill the leaders of countries means that American leaders are vulnerable, and then American-aligned puppet leaders are also vulnerable. Like you don't want to get if your conception of Hezbollah is they're a bunch of like shadow assassin terrorists, right? I think they're a political party. That's just me. But if you think like, oh, there's all these guerrilla terrorists all over the world, you want to get into a assassination war with them? Like, are you fucking stupid? You know, it's a very silly way to run. Like the norms around not shooting political leaders are important. It is effectively like it's the poor. It's literally like WMDs for poor countries. Like poor countries can't nuke you, right? They're poor, but they can like probably kill your leader or kill your ambassador. Like they can. There's like people forget in the late Cold War when America was shifting, say from like 1981 to the GY era, America started going very hard because we're Zog against like Iranian aligned political parties in the Middle East and Hezbollah in the Middle East, and a lot of like CIA employees and station chiefs and ambassadors were getting like kidnapped and tortured to death, like with a certain regularity. And yes, you could say,
Yeah.
well, Hezbollah never like shot the American president. Yeah, but like, the American president's like Beirut station chief is more impactful, and like that having the CIA station chief,
Yeah.
which is not be tortured to death in a hotel room over 4 months, is somewhat important to American prestige. And like, I'll just the next guy who has that job, you know, like.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the Beirut station chief of the CIA is probably more important than the individual guy who's U.S. president to America's, role in the Middle East. It's like it goes back to the point of not believing that states are real and just thinking it's like individual celebrities are all that matters. It's like the U.S. did not cease to exist and get partitioned by Canada and Mexico when Kennedy got shot,
Yes.
but the U.S. Presence in Beirut, the U.S. CIA presence there, can kind of be destroyed by,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
People don't realize. What was it? Buckley? That was a very, very sad story, actually. Because the CIA just looked at the CIA didn't even like really try to get him back. Like they just like, oh, oof. Please stop sending us fingers. It's a real shame. Yeah, I do think that incident is very grim, but like that was the war America chose to fight. We're gonna start doing assassinations to the world. Wow, they're gonna like. It reminds me, what's that Rich Tenanya tweet that like, it was like
Blowback,
literally the day after we kidnapped Maduro. It was like, turns out blowback theory isn't true, and like that's not how blowback works, brother. Like you can't say like it's like a bank robber like in the getaway car being like, I'm never getting caught. It's like, brother, the reason you don't rob the bank is not like that you don't want to get money because you're a cuck or you're afraid as you rob the bank you'll be stopped. Like you can, it's the rest of your life on the run kind of part that makes this difficult. Like that's why you don't commit crimes because you will be stopped in the act of crime. No one thinks this way. And maybe if you want to be like very racist, the reason certain populations in America are so criminally inclined is because they think this way. They have this idea that like if I'm not stopped in the act of the crime, then I've gotten away with it. And like if I'm caught days later, that's them cheating. But like that's just how the world works. That's how justice works. That's how crimes get punished. Is they get punished, weeks and days and years, sometimes even decades later. You get caught. Like that's the reason not to be a criminal, because you're not always looking over your shoulder.
we're at the 45-minute mark, but the lobby and its near future in U.S. electoral politics is the other point we're going to hit.
AIPAC has declared total AIPAC victory, and J Street has declared total J Street victory. The Democrats, there were 6 like anti-Israel people and I believe none of or new challengers. Like I believe all the old challengers kept their seats. Like your they didn't even not that they didn't try, but your the classic squad, your squad classique, your Rashida Tlaibs, your Ilhan Omars, they maintain their primaries, but they did. There were some new attempts to spin up anti-Israel Democrats, and they all seem to have failed. I mean, all for their own reasons, and they are kind of crank candidates, some of them. But
Yeah, Illinois' ninth, we've got Kat Abu Ghazala.
yes, who is super hot. I should point that out. She was the most, I think, because she is kind of a streamer, and also is a hot
Yeah.
girl, and is part Palestinian. But her opponent got a ton of not APAC money, but J Street money, like a ton of J Street money, and then also she decided to like kind of torpedo her support base, which was like call it like the lefty streamer DSA, and also just like anti-Israel Democrats, but being a really weird China hawk in like the last 2 weeks, talking how much like we should fight for Taiwan and the evils of the Communist Party of China. Like, I think
It's
I
like
don't think
maybe she it's like maybe she heard people sharing around Mearsheimer and Walt's book and then just like adopted all of Mearsheimer's views by rote.
totally. Yeah, she's a Mearsheimer. It's a very fun. Yeah, yeah. Maybe she's like a Mearsheimer, a Mearshimist. Because you wouldn't call that a realist. Like Mearsheimer is a very specific worldview that's under realism, right? That's his proposals.
Universal basic nukes is another important part of his worldview. I'm not sure if she
Yeah.
adopted.
Yeah. Well, he's moving for Taiwan. She wants them, but yeah, and then her opponent when he won, he's just some like Democrat Jew shill. I believe he had taken APAC money in the past and stopped. Was that true?
Yeah, Daniel Biss is the one who was saying, so enough about APAC. May tonight be the last night I utter their name. This victory belongs to J Street. I guess APAC tracker and the general anti-Zionist discourse has made the APAC brand toxic enough that you've got to go to rival and I guess more Democratic Party ideology friendly slices of bread within your kosher sandwich shop.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is interesting. APAC traditionally hasn't wanted to be this like much of an election issue. So, for example, they historically didn't directly donate to candidates. There's a whole series of different financial laws around how the different organizations that can do what. But traditionally, it was a forum for like different rich Jewish guys to work together to develop a strategy. And second of all, when these guys were running campaign ads, they weren't about Israel. They were just about totally unrelated topics, trying to get one person in, trying to oppose another person, and presenting this to the voters as being having to do with election issues totally unrelated to Israel. So it's weird that like as Israel has become more unpopular, it's making itself its lobby is making Israel more of an issue about which they publicly lobby to the voters.
Historically, APAC would just run by giving you like, oh, you're a rich dude. There's like here's like our top 200 elections. Give all 200 of these guys the max, whatever 5,000 or 3,000 it is that year, like personal donation. And then if you're really rich, max that from your wife too. Make it 6,000 or 10,000, depending on it. And like you don't have to worry too much actually about like finding all these Israeli hills. Like we will, and the money would just go to their campaign. They would spend it how they see fit, which would be on like just like, oh, my opponent is a son of a bitch type ads. And you as the Jewish businessman don't have to like do this work yourself. It was kind of, and it would never, APAC wouldn't really be like reflected on that. APAC giving direct money is a very interesting. It's not real. I guess they've been doing it for a while, but it's always very minor. I think I do wonder if very much it's like it's just bureaucrat. Like we need to justify the need for APAC. Like APAC didn't like institutions have an want to continue to exist outside of any other objective they have, right? And in theory, when APAC was a email chain and one conference a year of like, hey, just donate to these 200 people or 30 people, right? That could be like replaced, and there are like APAC heads in these who wanted to kind of create more like continuity of APAC that make APAC an institution and like a lobby. because like that's one of the things is that like the Jewish lobby is not AIPAC. It is the Jewish lobby. It's called the lobby. It's not called the AIPAC. And I do think that they were just kind of like they have kind of just built their fief in the lobby to some degree, in the same way that like Jews in the SPLC kind of had their thing, and then eventually they abandoned it, and the SPLC is now kind of a joke, but like it's like a faction or a because there's right wing AIPACs which are very informal. It's basically the Chabad Lubavitch equivalent. I forget. I don't. Does it have a name? I've heard of. Basically, there's like Chabad Lubavitch is the right wing one broadly, and then J Street is the left wing one. But like you can go left or right of AIPAC. Like Randy Fine does not get AIPAC money, right? He's too psycho. Like, you know, openly. I mean, he gets AIPAC donations, but he doesn't get AIPAC donations. He gets donor donations from the AIPAC donors. So yeah, I think he gets it from like whatever. I forget the name. Chabad's equivalent is. So I think that is the future of the lobby. I think will be. I don't think they want to give an inch just because of how they are. AIPAC, like Jews don't give an inch, right, unless they have to. But when they see they have to give an inch, it's like, okay, well, there's a popular anti-AIPAC, anti-Israel person running. We will not give their opponent money. We will have that money go through J Street, or if it's a right-wing person, if it's like, I don't know, maybe they'll give money through Chabad, Lubavitch, as opposed to, AIPAC. But like, they're not. I don't think AIPAC's going away because also, frankly, for the vast majority of races, AIPAC is a non-factor, right? It's only in like Democratic primaries that AIPAC support is an issue because Republicans are too cupped to ever accuse you of taking AIPAC money in a meaningful way.
Oh, ZOA. That's the traditional one of the
yes, Zionist Organization of America.
Yeah, you got good old.
It's so funny. There. Yeah, Mort Klein. Shit, fuck. Mort Klein. Shit, fuck.
Yep, that's his full name.
Yeah, I've heard him say it. Sorry. I love making fun of the disabled. Yeah, Mort Klein. It wasn't the name I hadn't heard in a long time. Oh, speaking of, fuck it. Let's just go into the lobby a little bit. I want to talk about my just little like story with the lobby. When I was working for a conservative NGO at one point in my life, it was about like political organizing.
It was Kufi. He was working for Christians United for Israel.
They were adjacent. One of the metrics they were like, if you could go and you could create a club on a college campus, you had to do so many of these per semester or whatever, or year. I forget. It's forever ago now. And like, it was like, oh, if you create in a chapter of the NRA on the university, whatever, that's like one, right? Makes sense.
Yeah. And the reward if you accomplish it is you get to meet Mort Klein.
Yes. Of the organizations,
or you get to not meet Mort Klein.
Yes, you could. But the thing is, it wasn't just creating like Young Americans for Liberty or Freedom or Turning Point or any of these other groups. The other thing you could do, and this is very funny, you could create Jewish clubs, not political. Like if there was a university that didn't have a Hillel society or a Zoa chapter, you could just do that. Like the conservative movement, viewed like as you would just like organizing Jews for political and that like ethnic blocks. Like that was part of their thing. It was very funny.
You put on your yarmulke, you reach down and roll it back, and then you start putting on your Woody Allen voice, and you get a Jewish club going on your local university.
Yeah, but it was just very funny. It's like the conservative movement really wants more Hillel societies at American universities, and like Zoa, and J Street wasn't on the list, but I'm sure there's I guess there's no like AIPAC youth wing. There is a Zoa youth wing, and I believe they're the J Street kid, J Street college thing. J Street. Oh, do you want to talk about nukes for a little bit, real quick?
Sure.
I truly don't think
the Fukuyama article. Did you cover that on Mic Check?
I might be alluded to. Yeah, Fukuyama basically just did we briefly alluded to nukes. I don't know if the article's actually kind of a snoozer because it's just like saying Israel should have made nukes. We covered the foreign affairs article where they said it was Iran's fault. It was Iran's fault for not building nukes that the war happened, which is very funny. But yeah, I don't actually think that they're going to nuke Iran, and that's not because of anything moral. It's because like the actual
why? No, it's just like,
this.
why would you do it?
Yes, like the mechanisms of this war are not like if there are problems in this conflict, right? The Strait of Hormuz is locked down by drones and anti-ship missiles and all these things, and islands full of Iranian troops. So then that's one problem. The problem also is that air defense has not been attrited heavily. There are drone factories in the mountains.
Oh, there is one point that I briefly want to hit on. So there are some like I guess like NAFO adjacent like OSINT and our conflict analysts who I follow who are like pointing out how early on the U.S. was releasing photos of aircraft loading up JDAMs being released in reference to this current war, which means that, suppression of enemy air defense must have been completed on day one, because look at these photos being released on Twitter of non-standoff weapons being loaded onto aircraft. It's like, no, standoff weapons still are what these, the aggressing states are depending upon quite some time later. It's not like Iranian air defense was ended on day one. That was just like a talking point that I kept seeing. Just pointing to a photo of like a JDAM being loaded onto an airplane is, proof that the standoff weapon shortage is no longer an issue.
You know what's funny in OSINT world? There is a whole genre of guy who is not an OSINT guy. They are just guys who specialize in something called like high altitude aerial photography, and it's about what it sounds, and you have to use all kind of very specific lenses and stabilizers, and even not AI tools, but like algorithmic tools to clear up blurry and out of focus images. And these guys so you can get obviously any fucking jack off can take a picture with a nice camera of a plane you take off from an airfield, right? But like getting a plane in flight at 30,000 feet is a feat, right? And these guys like to flex, and one of the things they like to flex is B-52s, and I wonder if they're going to be asked to stop, because they keep spotting B-52s with these external mounted cruise missiles, right? And that's embarrassing. Like it isn't like if you're trying to make the narrative of air defense is gone, well, air defense ain't gone, None of the nuclear weapon, none of the objectives that the Iranians or the Americans have with the Iranians, they will be really assisted with nukes. If the one thing was like, we need them to like the reason that nuking Japan worked is because Japan was like already on the ropes, right? And yes, you could nuke Tehran, but like then Tehran is nuked, but all of those things that I mentioned are still in place, and in fact, much more so. It's like, okay, well, actually, you have to nuke like the three biggest cities, not just Tehran. You have to nuke them, and was it Mashhad and Isfahan? Like that's you could do that, and maybe you would win, but like the absolute human cost of like dropping multiple nukes, and then even if they want, the thing is that would also destroy the Iranian government and like create there will be regional commanders who still want to fight you, and maybe you get your civil war. But like, I don't see the scenario where nukes would be used, which is something very limited on a tactical objective. But the thing is, anything that you could like hit with a tactical nuke, you hit with a non-nuclear missile, like it's not. I don't think it's serious. People are talking about the nuke threat, because it reminds me of this conception of like, there's like these I win buttons in politics and government, like libtards or make stuff. And to some degree, there is some truth to like the concept in certain types. So like, there's an I win button. We're not being allowed to press the button. The problem is the administration views, not the administration, like people. First of all, commentators view like nukes as this I win button that they're not being allowed to press because of like libtards, which is just, I don't think the administration is even serious with that either, to be honest. But the other thing is,
currency purchases to drive down the value of the U.S. dollar. That's the I win button.
Yeah, that's I not the worst thing. But the other I win button, I think that what the administration considers its I win button, Hegseth and Trump and some degree, is that like troops on the ground are the I win button, and that like much like the Iraqis, that like the Iranian troops just won't actually fight. So you just need to get Americans down there, and then then like if you land the Americans on one of the island garrison will just surrender, right? Very, very high risk kind of a thing to do. And also, people forget that the Iraqis that were defeated in 91 and '03 in both cases had been enduring 6 months of bombing campaigns, like being bombed for a very long time, and also this is critical, not being able to hit back, right? Like the
Yeah.
Scud missiles were not that great. Like it's very moralizing for the Iranians to be able to strike back and and point to things and shoot down planes, and like they're bombing Israel, right? And Saddam bombed Israel and it was cool, but it wasn't like going to destroy Israel by any means. This is much more sophisticated, much better than the Shahed drone. There's more going on here. Like the Iranians are they're scoring victories. They're, like NATO forces have left apparently. So not all American forces, but all NATO forces have left Iraq or are leaving Iraq right now. Like the Iranian strategy of having one of the things that was brought up actually in that Foreign Affairs article is that the Iranian strategy of not doing nukes but instead spinning up Iranian friendly militias and political parties in neighboring countries, they were saying that was bad because it didn't have the deterrent effect of nukes, right? Which is fair. Deterrent effect is an important for weapons and tactics and what you develop. But paradoxically, while the deterrent effect of it may be less than nuke, the actual military effect of Hezbollah in Iraq has been massive. Like, because they're an army, a very small army, but they are a military and they can strike. Because there is no American military presence in Iraq. It was very small to begin with. So like they can just push out and okay, yeah, the Houthis are not a deterrent effect. Maybe they should be, but they are military, and like the Houthis have 400,000 troops, right? Like maybe it's not as deterrent as a nuke, but when the war starts, that is an actual weapon you can bring to bear. And I think that is an underrated part of analyzing Iranian strategy is that it. I don't want to say that it was never deterrence based. Absolutely, there's always deterrence in military strategy, but a lot of the Iranian strategy was not just about deterrence. It was about like wargaming out and winning the war.
Yeah.
Like assuming deterrence fails, what do we have next, right? Which is actually, and that was something I don't want to say a problem, but the American focus and the Western focus, not wrongly, I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily at all, is that it is focused for defense strategy on deterrence, right? The Fulda Gap event, like East Germany never invades West Germany because of the nuclear deterrence, and we have a conventional army to also help that. They never go into like until America pulls out. Like America doesn't ever North Vietnam doesn't invade South Vietnam. The Taiwan is still there, uninvaded, right? Invadable, but not being invaded because of like this American deterrence doctrine. But that's I think it's a more moral way of waging like foreign policy. Actually, you want to be deterrent as opposed to like constantly fighting wars. But America can struggle a lot when it gets stuck into a conflict because you can't deter somebody once the shooting has started. The Taliban were not deterred. The Taliban didn't want to fight us. They were talking about, we'll give up Bin Laden for these conditions and whatever, and we invade. And I was like, okay, well now you can't deter the Taliban anymore. You chose to fight them. So sometimes you choose to fight, and now you're in a fight, and all your deterrence is now it's like, well, it doesn't matter if you shoot with a bullet or a nuke or a bomb. You're fighting, And I think that's an important, I think, under recognized aspect of Iranian strategy is that it was never deterrence based fully, in a way that American strategy would be.
Yeah, although to go back real quick to the point about the PMF, so there has been, as we mentioned in our last episode, an attempt to destroy the Iranian government under the logic that once you start the ground invasion, the country will collapse on contact. Happened in 1980 from Iraq. That would also probably be the most plausible place from which to do a new ground operation into Iran. But again, the PMF is making that rather difficult. Also, like the Karg Island meme, uh, people don't notice like where exactly that is. It's not like on the Arabian Sea coast of Iran. It's like deep up in the Gulf. So you're having to run the Strait of Hormuz, I guess. Uh, Either do that or just like put a couple of symbolic like Delta Force guys in there, like fly them in. If you're not trying to do like an actual like larger U.S. presence there, but you're going to get you headed pretty hard and frequently because you're up way into the Gulf, and I mean, also resupply is going to be an issue if you've got more than like I don't know 2 guys hiding in a tent somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's true. People. That's the other interesting thing about the PMF is that so if it's based on Shaheds and like there is an effective Shahed range that is less than missile range, call it I don't know 300 500 kilometers. Well, what if you could move the Shahed? What if you could move Muhammad to the mountain, right? Or move the mountain to Muhammad. Move the Shahed to the target, and then Shaheds from Iraq are closer to Israel than the Iranian ones, and Shaheds from Syria are really close to and Lebanon are really close to Israel. So if you're if you're entering a phase, and they're not in this yet, they're still in a missile phase because they have to strike Israel directly. If you're going to enter a phase of like non-nuclear but EMF supremacy, because as you get these groups to spin up their own internal domestic, if you will, they're not using they're not being sent them from Iran. This can become profoundly problematic for your enemies because if you even if so like this there is people were saying I don't know how true this is maybe it's 40 a day. Some people are saying that Iran can make 400 shaheeds a day or in peacetime conditions, but like if and that's important because they're a state all this stuff, but if like the PMF in Iraq can make like one a day, right? After a year or two, they're just like, that's like things are getting really difficult for anybody else. And maybe like also the problem with the Shahed is that it doesn't matter that the enemy can also make his own. There's this take in like military science that some weapons are like democratizing. Like a musket is very democratizing because you train a guy very quickly with it. They're all kind of created equal, whereas something like a battleship is inherently like centralizing. Whereas because you need to be a massive state to build a battleship. This is the most democratic. This is about so it's more almost as democratized as like the IED, right? Anybody can use this, and you just like the forces that like it doesn't really do much good for America or Israel to adopt a Shahed because like they just already had like an F-16 dropping a bomb. Like they don't actually gain capability here, whereas everyone else is closing that gap. So
Yeah.
it kind of fundamentally is what it is, And speaking of Shahed range, I'm gonna do some quick math really quick, but if one of my call it special interests is Taiwanese defense because I do find it like very interesting. Taiwan is less than 200 kilometers from China. That is like pretty firmly within Shahed range of like their own equivalents, and they don't want to destroy it, but like I think you could see it with the Chinese. Obviously, can make Shahed drones like nobody else if they put their mind to it. You could see something like you could see things getting very silly with like what if China launched 200,000 Shahed drones at Taiwan? Like,
Well, I mean, considering the asymmetry here, like Taiwanese Shaheds, you see that in the future?
absolutely, absolutely. But I'm sure there are people like making those plans. But if the plan is to like, oh, we're gonna send American carrier groups and American air defense into Taiwan, like that could all become like very like. I'm envisioning a scenario where you could not. I don't want to say decapitate because that's like the American doctrine, but like every Taiwanese bunker and air defense platform and whatever it could be, and base could be just in the first, because the thing with these like big alpha strikes that like America likes to do and Israel is that they're not followed up by like a ground invasion. But I'm imagining where like you have 200,000 shaheeds in the air, and they are just like they freeze your country for as long as they're in the air for, like you can't do anything, and in that like frozen time, you can land like a serious landing force. Like they would be covering I'm imagining them like actually covering a landing force. They're just hovering and then being picked out and getting targets. Like, dog, this is gonna get
a higher tech version of October 7th. Hamas guys sneaking in under the
on rocket fire, sure.
Using rockets basically as a diversion.
I do think there is definitely like they'd be dumb not to, but the Taiwanese should be cranking these out because if they want to defend. Also, you get to think with Taiwan, like, there's factions in Taiwan that don't want to defend themselves too, which is interesting. There is like saboteur factions in Taiwan, so who knows how that's gonna go.